Okay, perfect. So our next speaker is Wolfgang. And Wolfgang has a background in business and engineering. He wrote his PhD thesis on the decentralization of energy generation. And he's the COO of Ecosia, a search engine that plants trees. And maybe you've heard of that already. And we are quite curious to learn from you about 200% from sustainable to regenerative. So the digital stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And let me share my screen with you. So yeah, I would love to see all of you, but as we all know, this is a bit difficult. And at least I see 3 of you. That's already something. Yeah? So I have some feedback. What I'm going to talk about is basically, so there are more and more companies talking about making pledges to become sustainable, to move to 100% renewable energy. There are lots of countries that talk day in, day out to one day get to carbon neutrality. And I think that's all boring and actually even counterproductive, at least once we even give praise to these organizations, because I will argue that it misses the point, and it's a setup that leads straight into disaster. And why is that? If we want to go into terrains that we haven't been in tens of millions of years, we need to keep, as you know, so we need to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees, and in order to do so, people calculated how much carbon we still can emit in order for the climate to not heat up more than that. And then they distribute this carbon budget between countries on the planet. And if everyone stays below that, yeah, then they say that we will stay below 1.5 C, and therefore we will somehow be able to keep the way we live today. No? And well, there are 2 caveats with that already, because before I get to the point of my presentation. One is that this modeling saves us only in 2/3 of all cases, which is, I think, a pretty low probability to bet your life on, or your way of life. And it didn't include, for initially, just for matters of complexity, it didn't include tipping points like the Arctic ice shields, permafrost, the Amazon forest, yeah, which of course are extremely important, yeah, and some of them, like the Arctic ice shield, already tipped. So it's likely that those 1.5 Cs will not be enough, or that the carbon budget that has been calculated is probably way too high. But I'm not even talking about this. I'm just talking about taking this goal, this pie, and distribute it to more than 100 countries, and then hope that everyone will achieve his or her goal. Is just absolutely hilarious. I mean, how can someone come to an idea like this? Because this plan doesn't have buffers. So it's a plan over decades which doesn't have a single buffer. And if I just look outside Germany, yeah, so there's and you look at big construction projects, yeah, they all, from any highways to operas in Hamburg or to airports in Berlin, they all are behind time and above budget. Yeah, there's not a single one that actually is on time, on budget. Yeah, so the idea that everyone on this planet needs to be on time and on budget for us, in order for us to keep to stay in the climate that we have been brought up, and then now our entire ecosystem has been brought up with, is absolutely hilarious. Yeah? And it's also since the Paris Agreement, since 2016. It's even, there's an evidence. Yeah? It's 99.5%, as we expect, are missing their targets. I think the only country on this planet that is currently on track is Morocco. So 99% of all countries are behind, as we expected it, and they will be behind, obviously. Yeah? So this is a plan for failure. So what do we do? Yeah, I think we need to call on leaders. And I put this. Perhaps some of you know this church. It's the Frauenkirche in Dresden. Yeah, the landmark the landmark church of Dresden. It got destroyed in the last weeks of the Second World War, and then remained destroyed for almost 50 years. Because yeah, the government at that time wasn't able to re-erect it. And then after the reunification, there was a group of citizens, that assembled and said, we are going to re-erect this church. And as you see, they did. And they did so on time, on budget, and largely, mostly with private funds. And then I listened to an interview with one of them, and he was asked, how did you get all that money? and then he said, there's one thing that we luckily found out rather early, and that made the big difference. He said, it's much easier to convince someone who has already donated to this cause for a second donation than someone who has never donated to it for a first one. And that made a lot of sense to me. I think that that's a brilliant idea. And so in terms of climate action, I also think it's much easier for us to convince someone who has gone to 100% renewable energy or to carbon neutrality, to convince that person or that company or that government, to go beyond, to go to 200% renewable energy, to go to carbon or to climate positive, to be carbon green, climate positive, than it is to, that's much easier than to convince the last whoever you want, Trump, Altmaier, whoever, to get from where they are to carbon neutrality. So I think it'll be much easier, it'll be much quicker, and it has lots of other advantages. So it'll add resilience to this plan. So once we have leaders that go beyond their fair share, it allows others to mess up. Whether willingly or unwillingly, people will mess up. So it adds resilience to the plan, and I think it also adds dignity to our lives, and also it takes out the hopelessness, because we are not stuck. We don't need to convince the last person on earth that they need to be start to move. It stops our dependency on those people. So we gain freedom back, we gain dignity back, and we are again can be the masters of our own fate. So what we need to do is we need, and I can give an example here, but what we need to do as individuals, as companies, as societies, we need to go from sustainable to regenerative, and we need to create a climate where it's not enough to be sustainable. For let's take this example of Google here. They have 100% renewable energy. They offset 100% of their carbon footprint, and they break with this. They want to be patted on their shoulder for it. This is a company. This is one of the biggest companies on this planet. They are worth more than $1 trillion, and they want to be praised for not being part of the problem anymore. They want to be praised, and without even having become part of the solution. They want to receive a praise for with all the power, money, influence, and brain power that they have. They stop at being zero, at looking at this from a neutral perspective. Actually, now as I'm talking about this, I forgot. I wanted to put in, or I should have put in, another quote here at this point from Bishop Tutu, who in a famous speech talked about racism. And he said, you cannot be neutral in front, being confronted with racism. You cannot stand there and watch that being neutral. It's not enough not being a racist. it's not enough being neutral either. Yeah, and I think the same goes obviously for the problem of climate collapse. Yeah, so we need companies and organizations, other organizations, individuals and countries especially, who move beyond that, who move to becoming regenerative. We need regenerative businesses, and we need to scale those businesses at the expense of other businesses. Huh? And I mean, here at what do we do at Ecosia? So we started building much more solar power plants than are actually required to generate the energy for our searches. So every search on Ecosia, on average, crowds out a little piece of a dirty coal power plant. No? And by using our profits to either invest into solar energy or to plant trees, and with the carbon that they sequester, we sequester much more of the carbon that our service actually emits. And this is one example. There are other examples of companies. Unfortunately, they're all very small so far. But we need to convince more companies to become regenerative. We need to help them scale, and we need to, I think, confront the big companies that also are consumer centric. We need to convince them that bragging about sustainable, those times have gone since 20 years. So we could have done that after the Rio summit 30 years ago. But now it's too late. The leaders need to go beyond. And so with the time that we have left, I mean, so I would. No, I would end like to end with a call for action, and so what can we do? What can what we in this group? That's probably the right group of people. Yeah. So personally, obviously, we can invest into renewable energy on our own house roofs if we have that, and if we don't, you can just you can just invest into systems that are built, that you build with other citizens, and the web is full of these things. Personal offsetting, Alicia already talked about that. Then when we talk about organizations that we are engaged in, one obviously that all of us share is ISEC Alumni, and I remember that I think 3 years ago. I pitched ISEC Alumni Germany, to become carbon neutral, and I thought that was awesome at the time. Now I know my mistake, and I hereby pledge that to ask during the next ISEC Alumni Germany conference, that ISEC Alumni Germany becomes a regenerative alumni organization, that we overcompensate what our footprint. And I think ISEC alumni should do that in general. And there are some people here from ISEC Alumni International, who perhaps think it is a good idea to get the rest of the organization moving towards that. And then obviously all of us work in some way or another. So those companies and organizations should be moved as well. I did my part with Ecosia, and but it's not the last. That we will not stop there. Because then third, it's about inspiring others, and right now I'm setting up a climate action energy leader fund, where we will, as Ecosia, build more solar energy than we actually need. We want to help other companies do the same thing, and try to inspire them to go to 200%. And we want to invest 100 million euros in that until 2025. And I wonder whether this could be an interesting topic for ISEC alumni in general, to inspire the organizations we work for to stop at not being a problem, but actually to inspire them to become part of the solution. that's where I mute myself and would love to have your thoughts.